Hi everyone, Jessica here and welcome back. So today's video we're going to be using a product that I've not used before. So this is a piece by piece die set, so it creates a puzzle. I think this came free with a die cutting essentials magazine. It was one that my nan gave me and I haven't used it yet, so I thought we would create a really fun sort of summer themed card. So you can see within this we've actually got so it's got 11 pieces. So we've got quite a lot of these smaller pieces which you could use for the actual puzzle itself or just to decorate the puzzle, but then you do have the puzzle itself and then a mat and layer for that as well. So it's really great. You've got two of these. So I think the outside die I believe was about 11 centimeters, so a pretty decent die. So I've taken it all apart, so I've taken all of those centerpieces out just with some clippers. Now I'm going to colour in the images that we're going to use to create our scene for our puzzle. So the puzzle section is going to be the sort of main focus of our card. So again, I wanted to go with a nice sort of summer themed card. Obviously at the moment the weather is incredibly hot, so I thought it was the perfect kind of card. So I'm just using my Spectrum Noir alcohol tri-blend markers to colour these images in. And I'm just going to go some really basic colouring. I'm going to go do some nice and bright colours in there as well, sort of some rainbow colours, just to have that really fun sort of seaside theme. The cardstock that I'm using for this is the Hunky Dory Ink Mate, and I think it's just a little bit thick for what we're doing here. And I do have a little bit of trouble later on actually cutting these puzzle pieces from this cardstock and getting it to go all the way through, because obviously it's quite, sort of ends up being quite thick. But I do think that this cardstock is perfect if you are going to be stamping and colouring in images like this using alcohol markers. The ink pad that I'm using, as always, is the Memento Tuxedo Black ink pad. Again, perfect combination with these alcohol markers because it doesn't smudge. So they are the perfect combination. If you are interested in these Spectrum Noir Tri-Blend alcohol markers, I will pop a link in the corner to a previous video that I've created where I talk about these markers, why I think they're good, and I sort of show you some really basic ways of sort of using them to colour in your images. So they're super easy to use because you've got a light, medium and dark all within one pen, so it makes creating really good coloured in images that sort of stand out. They've got sort of depth and dimension, so they're really easy to do that, especially if you are a beginner. I do have other alcohol markers, but I'm not particularly great at using them or picking the colours to go together, but these are just so incredibly easy to use. So once we've coloured in all of these images, I'm just going to go ahead and use the coordinated dies to cut these images out, and then we'll be ready to start constructing our card together. So you can see here I've got them all cut out, ready to go. So what I'm going to do next is actually create our base for our puzzle. So I've used the outside matte and layer die, and I've just cut this again from some cardstock. So again, this is the Ink Me cardstock, and you can see that it's just a little bit bigger than our puzzle. So before we run this piece through the die cutter machine, we're going to build our scene. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to create the sky. So I'm going to ink blend that. So I do end up just using one colour, and that's this Distress Oxide Tumbled Glass. So I'm just going to do really basic blending along the top section of this piece of cardstock, because I'm actually going to use some coloured paper for the sand portion. So you could be a little bit more in depth in actually blending this sky, if you want to add colours together, blend colours together, but I was happy just to kind of do this tumbled glass colour because I think this is a perfect sort of summer day sky colour. So once I'd finished the sky, like I said, I was going to use a piece of coloured cardstock for the sand portion. So again, using that 11 centimetre square die, I've just cut out a piece of this sort of sand coloured cardstock. I'm going to cut sort of a really nice kind of wavy pattern from it, just to give the illusion of it kind of being the sand, and just to give the card just a little bit of interest. So again, just really basic with a pair of scissors, chopping sort of randomly right across this piece of cardstock. What I'm also going to do to add a little bit of interest to the sand itself and just to make it stand out a little bit more, I'm actually going to take one of my Prism World of Colour ink pads. I believe this is the butterscotch colour, so a really light brown colour. And I'm just going to do just a little bit of blending onto the edges around it. Again, that kind of gives it a little bit more interest just than it being a plain coloured piece of cardstock. So you'll be able to see just how much this sort of stands out against that sky a lot better. You could add other things like some dots and things like that to it to make it feel like there's some stones or pebbles, but I'm happy just to put that little bit of colour around the outside. So the last thing I'm going to do is just add a little bit of yellow just for a bit of sunshine in the top right hand corner. So I started off using this dye ink. So again, this is the Prism World of Colour ink pads, and this is the Canary Yellow. But I felt like obviously it was looking green because obviously I'd put it on top of the blue. So I decided to get out my Distress Oxide because I knew it would sit on the surface a little bit better. So that's what I did, and I took this squeezed lemonade and it just kind of gave me that nice sort of sun look that I wanted. I have also used some double-sided tape just to put down the sand onto our cardstock, just because I want to make sure that it stays in place when we run it through our die cutting machine. So all I've got left to do now is just build our scene. So I am using a tape runner for this. If I was perhaps making this card to actually give somebody or post, maybe I would use something a little bit more permanent. Like I said, I didn't have any issues when running it through the die cutting machine, but obviously you don't want to sort of lose any small pieces. Perhaps if you're doing this with other images, you just want to sort of watch out that you don't lose any sections. This panel is quite small, so I don't need too many images here, which is great, but I do end up sort of using all of these and just sort of putting them on. But then I started building up those layers, because you think we've got a 300 GSM card base, then I've got, I think it's like a 120 in the sand colour, and then obviously because I've coloured these and stamped these images onto a thicker piece of cardstock again, obviously it wasn't quite enough to get it to go all the way through. So again, if perhaps you're going to be doing this, I would recommend using lighter cardstock, just so you're able to kind of get it through your die cutting machine. When I first started card making, I always created sort of 15 by 15 square cards, and that was sort of always my card of choice. And now obviously I've sort of moved on to other sizes and things, but actually I forgot how much I enjoy creating square cards. And I think this particular size, so this is 11 centimeters, I think this is perfect for creating little scenes like this, because it's not too big where you need too many images. So I think I might sort of get out a few of the other stamp sets that I've got and perhaps look at sort of creating them in this size, because I do think the scenes, sometimes if you're creating like I enjoy creating 7 by 5 inch cards, and sometimes you need a lot of images to kind of fill that card size, but I think this is perfect. So once we've got all of the images down exactly where we want them, we can go ahead and place our puzzle die over the top, and then I'm just going to run this through my die cutter machine. So I'm going to kind of, because it's slightly bigger, obviously I can sort of pick the placement a little bit more, and I'm just going to hold that in place with some washi tape, because obviously I don't want it to move, because then we'd have to start the whole thing again. So yeah, just some washi tape on all of the sides just to hold that down nicely, and like I said, running that through the die cutter machine. So the sort of sections at the top where obviously there's not a lot of layers there, that sort of came out super easy. So you can see here that top right hand corner has sort of come out beautifully. But you can see there it's just not quite gone through. But I do end up fixing that, super easy thing to do. The other thing as well is it's got a nice little border around it, so if you wanted to use that for some sort of matte and layering, obviously you have got that as well. I think this puzzle die is pretty cool, and I am starting to wonder sort of all the different sort of things that you could actually use this for. So obviously you could create real puzzles with this. Again, I don't know if it would go through sort of like a thicker cardstock. You'd have to try that, because you get a lot of like grey board that puzzles are backed onto, but certainly if you use sort of that really heavy cardstock, you could create some really fun puzzles, and obviously actual puzzles that work as well. So to solve the issue of obviously this having not cut all the way through, because all the indentations are there, all I'm going to do is take my craft knife just really carefully and just sort of cut these apart, and they come apart super easy. I don't sort of wreck the images or the puzzles or anything like that. Just got to be sort of super careful. So you can see here our final puzzle that we can put back together really nicely. Or again, I mean, you could use just 2 puzzle pieces, perhaps if you're making an anniversary card, a Valentine's Day card. Like I said, you could do something like this where you want the illusion of it to be a puzzle. It just sort of works in so many different ways and for lots of different cards and projects. So the next thing we're going to do is create a blank card base. So the one thing I want to show you is this paper pack or pad that I picked up from Lidl. So this is a 270 GSM coloured cardstock. There's 25 sheets in here, but it's only 1 sheet per colour, but you've got a really fantastic range of colours, and I thought this is a perfect weight for card bases. So I did pick up 2 of these. They had an assorted size paper weight. So they had this which was 270, and I believe they had a 160 as well. So I picked up 2 of these heavier ones and 1 of the lighter ones because I do want to make my own sort of coloured card bases. So you can see here I've taken this nice kind of peach colour because I thought that went really nicely with the beach theme, and I've cut this down to 15 by 15 centimetres. It is cut a little bit fuzzy, but I think that's more to do with my paper cutter, my paper trimmer, rather than the actual cardstock itself. I'm also going to bring in a piece of cardstock from this Paradise of Blooms. This is a 6 by 6 inch paper pack, and this is Love to Craft. I think, to be honest, this was picked up from the pound shop, and it's got this really fantastic sort of beachy vibe papers in here, so I thought this went perfectly with that peach background, and I thought then it would go really well with our beach themed puzzle. So I'm just putting this on here just to sort of see how much space I had around it, but as I'm putting it on I felt like it kind of got a little bit lost in the background. So what I decided to do was take that matting dies, that 11 centimetre die, and I decided just to cut some plain white cardstock. So what I'm going to do is just adhere my puzzle down. So to make sure that I get this in the right place, I kind of put the bottom and the right hand side pieces on first, just to get it lined up exactly where I wanted it to be, and then I just used my tape runner just to adhere down these puzzle pieces. So you can see I'm just putting in the last puzzle piece now, and it's just fitted together so well. Those top ones just a tiny bit of a gap in between, but I just sort of pushed those together, and I really love how this looks. So what we're going to do is just get down our other papers. So I'm just going to use the tape runner for our patterned paper and pop that onto our blank card base, and then we can go ahead and put our puzzle down. Now I wanted the puzzle to stand out from the card. I wanted there to be a little bit of dimension. However, I don't always like using foam pads. Some of the foam pads I have are quite deep. I know you can get thinner ones, but I don't find that I put enough on to sort of support the whole thing. So I've decided to go down a different route, and I feel like this is more cost effective, and I think it's going to support my so whatever I'm sticking down a lot better. So I decided to buy some foam. So this is sort of like that funky foam. So I picked this up from the range. I want to say this was like £1.50, £2 for a bunch of A4 sheets. So this does come in white, black and grey. So again, I just used that same 11 centimetre die, and I just cut this out. So this is the exact same size now as our matted puzzle. And all I'm going to do is take some liquid glue, and I'm just going to stick this down, and this is going to give perfect support to our puzzle piece. So I'm using liquid glue. So I've had this glue for ages, but I kind of stopped using it. I'm not really 100% sure why. And then sort of went into the double-sided tape, and then went into the tape runners because that was more convenient. But I've got this massive pot of glue that I just never actually use. But I think it works really well. It sort of sticks down perfectly. But now what we've got here is a puzzle topper adhered onto some foam, and like I said, it's going to give that perfect support, that perfect dimension all the way around. I just think this is sort of a real game changer for me in terms of using sort of foam pads and things like that. So now we can get this done on our card. So I'm just going to pop this to an angle because I didn't want it to sort of everything be too straight. I thought this would look better. And I think with that white border as well, you could almost turn this into like a Polaroid or like a photograph as well. If you didn't want to use the actual puzzle die, you just want to create a square scene, I think that would work perfectly as well. So the last thing I'm going to do just to finish this card off is I'm just going to pop a sentiment on it. So I've taken a sentiment again from the stamp set, and we're just going to stamp that onto some of the peach cardstock that I had, sort of a scrap piece from when I created the card base, and we're going to stamp "Have a Relaxing Day." And again, this is going to be in that Memento Tuxedo Black ink pad, but you can see where this is 3 different stamps that I've sort of built a sentiment together, and that relaxing has just sort of missed that middle section. So I'm just going to go in with like a fine liner. So often this happens, to be honest, it does happen to me quite often, and I literally just go in with a pen and you really never know the difference, so I don't sort of worry too much about it. So you can see I've just taken my guillotine and I've just chopped this down. So again, I didn't want such a big sentiment, we don't need it. Obviously the main focus of this card is our sort of a puzzle scene, and then of course we've got that patterned paper as well. So again, I'm just taking some of that liquid glue. I kind of forgot how much easier it is using liquid glue than sort of double-sided tape and things. So I'm just going to put this over this sort of top section, sort of where that sun is, because there's not really sort of a lot there about that colour, so that was kind of where I was planning to put that sentiment anyway. So that is then our card all finished. So again, just using a couple of new products, sort of say finding that paper at Lidl's. You don't necessarily have to buy sort of big branded stuff. Sometimes it is worth trying products that you find at the supermarket, and I do find out of all the supermarkets, I think Lidl actually has a pretty good sort of crafting section when obviously those type of products come in. Again, using then that puzzle die, I think you'll be able to use that for loads of different cards and projects, whether you use it as a whole puzzle, whether you make an actual functioning puzzle from it, or whether you just use pieces, like I said earlier, on a nice sort of anniversary card or sort of like a Valentine's Day card, that kind of thing. I think that's perfect. And again, a nice summary card for the weather that we are having at the moment. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's given you a little bit of inspiration on creating a nice sort of a sunny beach themed card. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do so. It really does help support this channel. It means that I can keep creating videos for you. So thanks very much for watching and happy crafting.